Maya never thought she was special. Growing up in a small town, she was just another girl working part-time at the local grocery store while studying to become a nurse. But everything changed during the summer of her 22nd birthday when her grandmother fell seriously ill. Grandma Rose had been the heart of their family. For as long as Maya could remember, she was the one who baked cookies for every birthday, who listened to everyone's problems, and who somehow always knew exactly what to say when life got tough. So when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do, Maya's world felt like it was falling apart. The family decided to bring Grandma Rose home for her final days. Maya volunteered to be her primary caregiver, spending every moment she could by her grandmother's bedside. The old woman was in constant pain, struggling to breathe, and the medication barely seemed to help anymore. One evening, as Maya sat holding her grandmother's hand, something strange happened. Maya had been gently rubbing her grandmother's fingers, trying to offer some comfort, when she noticed the old woman's breathing becoming easier. The lines of pain on her face seemed to soften. Her grandmother opened her eyes and smiled for the first time in days. "That feels wonderful, dear," she whispered. "Don't stop." Maya thought it was just coincidence. Maybe the medicine was finally working, or perhaps her grandmother was having one of those good moments that sometimes happen with sick people. But as the days went on, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every time Maya held her grandmother's hand or gently massaged her shoulders, the pain seemed to melt away. The visiting nurse, Linda, noticed it too. She had been caring for elderly patients for over 20 years, and she had never seen anything quite like this. "Whatever you're doing," she told Maya, "keep doing it. I've never seen anyone respond to touch therapy like this." Maya didn't know what touch therapy was, but she kept doing what felt natural. She would sit with her grandmother for hours, her hands gently moving over the old woman's arms and back. During these sessions, her grandmother would drift into peaceful sleep, her breathing steady and calm. Word spread quickly through their small town. Family friends started asking if Maya could help with their aches and pains. Mrs. Johnson from down the street came over with her arthritic hands. After just 10 minutes with Maya, she was moving her fingers more freely than she had in years. Then came Tom, the mailman who had been dealing with chronic back pain. He was skeptical at first, but desperate enough to try anything. Maya simply placed her hands on his lower back and held them there. Within minutes, he was standing straighter than he had in months. "I don't know what you're doing," he said, amazement in his voice, "but it's working." Maya was as surprised as everyone else. She had no training, no special knowledge about healing. All she did was touch people with genuine care and concern. Yet somehow, it was helping in ways that traditional medicine couldn't. After her grandmother passed away peacefully in her sleep, Maya decided to pursue her nursing degree more seriously. She enrolled in a program at the nearby community college, determined to understand how the human body worked and how healing really happened. During her clinical rotations, Maya's reputation followed her. Patients who had been struggling with pain for weeks would find relief after just a few minutes with her. Physical therapists started requesting her assistance with their most difficult cases. Even the doctors began to take notice. Dr. Williams, the head of the rehabilitation department, was particularly intrigued. He had practiced medicine for over 30 years and had seen many dedicated nurses, but Maya was different. Patients who worked with her recovered faster, needed less pain medication, and seemed to have a more positive outlook on their healing journey. "There's something special about the way you connect with patients," he told Maya during one of their conversations. "Have you ever considered specializing in rehabilitation therapy?" Maya hadn't, but the idea appealed to her. She enjoyed helping people, and if she could make a real difference in their recovery, that felt like a calling worth pursuing. As she continued her studies, Maya began to notice patterns in her abilities. The healing seemed to work best when she was calm and focused, when she genuinely cared about the person she was helping. It wasn't about technique or pressure or any specific method. It was about connection, about truly wanting to help someone feel better. She also learned that not everyone believed in what she could do. Some medical professionals were skeptical, dismissing her results as coincidence or placebo effect. But Maya didn't mind the doubters. She could see the results in her patients' faces, feel the tension leaving their bodies, watch them move with less pain and more hope. By the time she graduated from nursing school, Maya had already developed a small following of patients who specifically requested her care. She was offered a position at the county hospital, working in the rehabilitation unit where she could help people recovering from injuries and surgeries. Maya thought she had found her place in the world. She was helping people, using her gift in a positive way, and building a career she loved. She had no idea that her abilities would soon attract attention from someone who would change her life in ways she never expected. The stage was set for what would become the most challenging period of her life, though at the time, Maya felt nothing but gratitude for the gift she had been given and the opportunity to use it to help others heal. Dr. Harrison had always been the kind of man who believed only in what he could prove. After 15 years of practicing medicine, he had seen every kind of treatment, every miracle cure, and every so-called healer who claimed to have special powers. None of them had ever impressed him. Science was his religion, and facts were his faith. So when the hospital administrator told him about Maya, the new rehabilitation nurse who was getting unusual results with patients, he rolled his eyes. Another well-meaning nurse who thought positive thinking and gentle touches could cure everything. He had worked with dozens of them over the years, and while their bedside manner was nice, it rarely made any real difference in patient outcomes. Dr. Harrison, the administrator, said, "I think you should see this for yourself. The patients working with Maya are recovering faster than we've ever seen. Recovery times vary." He replied, not looking up from his paperwork, "Some people heal faster than others. It's basic biology." But then he met Jake, a construction worker who had fallen from scaffolding 3 months earlier. Jake had suffered severe spinal injuries that left him unable to walk. Every specialist had told him the same thing. He might regain some sensation, but walking again was unlikely. Dr. Harrison had been treating Jake since the accident. The man was tough, determined, and followed every instruction perfectly. But after months of traditional physical therapy, the progress was minimal. Jake was getting discouraged, and honestly, so was Dr. Harrison. That's when Maya was assigned to Jake's case. Dr. Harrison decided to observe her first session. Curious to see what all the fuss was about, he watched as Maya introduced herself. To Jake, her voice warm and encouraging, she explained that they would work together, that she believed in his ability to heal, and that she was there to support him every step of the way. Then she began to work. Maya's approach was different from anything Dr. Harrison had seen. She didn't just guide Jake through exercises. She would place her hands on his legs, his back, his shoulders, and something seemed to happen. Jake's face would relax, his breathing would slow, and he would report feeling sensations in places where he hadn't felt anything in months. "I can feel warmth," Jake said during that first session, tears in his eyes, "in my left leg. I haven't felt anything there since the accident." Dr. Harrison made notes, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was the power of suggestion. Maybe Jake was so desperate to feel something that his mind was creating sensations that weren't really there. But as the weeks went on, the results became harder to dismiss. Jake began moving his toes, then his feet. Within a month, he was standing with assistance. Dr. Harrison ran every test he could think of, and the results were undeniable. Jake's spinal cord was healing in ways that medical science said weren't possible. "How are you doing this?" Dr. Harrison asked Maya one day after Jake's session. Maya shrugged, a slight smile on her face. "I'm not doing anything special. I just put my hands where it hurts and tried to help." "That's not an answer," Dr. Harrison said, frustration creeping into his voice. "There has to be a scientific explanation." Maya looked at him with kind eyes. "Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. Does it matter if it's helping people?" Dr. Harrison wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Jake was walking again. Other patients were showing similar improvements. The evidence was right in front of him, even if he couldn't explain it. He started requesting Maya for his most difficult cases. There was Anna, a stroke victim who hadn't spoken in 6 months. After working with Maya for 2 weeks, she said her first words. There was Carlos, a teenager who had lost the use of his arm in a car accident. Maya worked with him for a month, and he was throwing a baseball again. Each success ate away at Dr. Harrison's skepticism. He began staying late to watch Maya work, taking detailed notes, trying to understand what was happening. He measured room temperature, checked for electromagnetic fields, and even brought in equipment to monitor brain activity during her sessions. But the more he studied Maya, the more confused he became. There was nothing unusual about her technique from a medical standpoint. She wasn't using any special equipment or following any particular protocol. She simply touched people with genuine care, and somehow they got better. You're overthinking it, Maya told him one evening as they finished up with their last patient of the day. Sometimes healing isn't about understanding everything. Sometimes it's just about caring enough to try. Dr. Harrison found himself thinking about that conversation long after he went home. He had spent his entire career believing that medicine was about diagnosis, treatment plans, and measurable outcomes. But Maya was showing him something different. She was showing him that healing could be about connection, about hope, about the simple act of one person genuinely caring for another. As the months passed, Dr. Harrison began to rely on Maya more and more. He would schedule his most challenging cases around her availability. He would stay late to observe her sessions. He started asking her opinion on treatment plans, something he had never done with any other nurse. He told himself it was purely professional curiosity. He was studying an unexplained phenomenon, gathering data, trying to understand how her methods could be integrated into traditional medicine. But deep down, he knew it was becoming something more than that. Maya had shown him that there were things in the world that couldn't be explained by science alone. She had opened his eyes to possibilities he had never considered, and slowly, without him even realizing it, she was becoming the most important part of his work life. He started looking forward to seeing her each morning. He would find excuses to check on her patients throughout the day. He began staying later and later, always with the excuse that he was conducting research, but really just to spend more time in her presence. Dr. Harrison told himself that his growing fascination with Maya was purely professional. He was a scientist studying an unexplained phenomenon. But if he was being honest with himself, which he rarely was, he would have to admit that Maya had become more than just a colleague to him. She had become necessary. And that need, that growing dependence on her presence and her abilities, was about to change both of their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. Maya started noticing the changes in Dr. Harrison about 6 months after they began working together. At first, it was small things that seemed harmless enough. He would always check her schedule before making his own appointments. He would ask her opinion on cases that didn't really need her input. He would linger after patient sessions, asking questions about her techniques that seemed to go beyond professional curiosity. "You have a gift," he would tell her almost daily. "We need to study this more. We need to understand how you do what you do." Maya appreciated his interest, but something about the way he said it made her uncomfortable. There was an intensity in his eyes that went beyond scientific curiosity. It felt more personal, more desperate. The first real warning sign came when Dr. Harrison started changing patient schedules. Without consulting the other staff, Maya would arrive at work to find that all of her assigned patients had been moved to different time slots, usually later in the day when fewer people were around. When she asked about it, he would explain that he wanted to create optimal conditions for her healing work. Fewer distractions, he would say. Better environment for what you do. Maya didn't like working alone with patients, especially in the evening when the rehabilitation center was mostly empty. She had always preferred having other staff members around, not just for safety reasons, but because healing felt like a team effort. But Dr. Harrison was her supervisor, and she didn't want to cause problems. Then he started requesting her for cases that didn't really need her special abilities. Simple physical therapy cases, routine checkups, patients who were already recovering, well on their own. When Maya questioned whether these patients really needed her help, Dr. Harrison would insist that her presence was essential. Every patient deserves the best care we can give them, he would say, and you're the best we have. Maya couldn't argue with that logic, but it felt wrong. She knew there were other patients who needed her help more, people who were struggling with pain and mobility issues that traditional therapy couldn't address. Instead, she was spending time with patients who were doing fine without her. The situation got worse when Dr. Harrison started requesting private meetings with her. He would call her into his office to discuss patient cases, but the conversations would quickly shift to questions about her personal life. How did she first discover her abilities? Had she always been able to heal people? Did she practice any special techniques at home? I think you might be able to help me understand this better, he said during one of these meetings. I've been having some health issues myself lately. Headaches, back pain, stress-related symptoms. Traditional medicine isn't helping much. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She had suspected this was coming, but she hadn't wanted to believe it. Dr. Harrison, I think you should see another doctor. Maybe get a second opinion. I've seen 3 different doctors, he replied. They all say the same thing: stress, overwork, getting older. But I know it's more than that. I think you could help me the way you help our patients. Maya tried to maintain her professional composure, but inside she was panicking. She had always been careful to keep her healing work within proper medical boundaries. She worked with patients who were officially assigned to her care, always with other staff members present, always following proper protocols. I don't think that would be appropriate, she said carefully. Maybe you should consider taking some time off, reducing your workload. Dr. Harrison's face darkened. Maya, I'm not asking for anything inappropriate. I'm simply asking for the same care you give to our patients. Are you saying you won't help me? The way he said it made Maya feel guilty, like she was being selfish, for refusing to help someone who was in pain. But every instinct told her this was wrong. Dr. Harrison wasn't her patient. He was her supervisor, and he was putting her in an impossible position. Over the next few weeks, Dr. Harrison's behavior became more concerning. He would stand closer to her than necessary during patient sessions. He would find excuses to touch her shoulder or hand when they were talking. He would make comments about how much better he felt just being near her. There's something about your presence, he would say, even when you're not actively healing. I feel calmer, more centered. Maya started avoiding him whenever possible. She would take lunch breaks at different times, leave work as soon as her shift ended, and try to schedule her patient sessions when other staff members were around. But Dr. Harrison seemed to notice her avoidance, and it only made him more persistent. The breaking point came when Maya arrived at work one morning to find that Dr. Harrison had cleared her entire schedule except for one appointment, a private session with him. He had scheduled himself as a patient, listing symptoms of chronic pain and fatigue. I've been having trouble sleeping, he told her when she confronted him about it. The pain is getting worse. My regular doctor says there's nothing wrong with me, but I know you'll be able to help. Maya felt trapped. If she refused to treat him, she would be going against a direct order from her supervisor. If she reported him, who would believe her? He was a respected doctor, and she was just a nurse. But if she went along with it, she would be crossing a line that felt dangerous and wrong. Dr. Harrison, I really think you should see someone else about this, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. There's no one else, he replied, and for the first time, Maya heard something desperate in his voice. You're the only one who can help me. Please, Maya. I'm asking you as a colleague, as someone who needs your help. Maya looked at him and saw something that scared her. Dr. Harrison wasn't just asking for help anymore. He was demanding it, and she realized that somewhere along the way, her gift had become less about healing patients and more about feeding whatever need was growing inside Dr. Harrison. She was starting to understand that her abilities, as wonderful as they were, came with responsibilities and dangers she had never considered. And Dr. Harrison was showing her just how wrong things could go when healing became about something Other than genuine care for a patient's well-being, the professional relationship she had trusted was becoming something else entirely, and Maya didn't know how to stop it without risking everything she had worked for. Maya couldn't sleep for 3 nights in a row. She had been lying awake thinking about Dr. Harrison's strange behavior. Something was very wrong, and she needed to figure out what it was before things got worse. She decided to do some investigating of her own. The next morning, she arrived at work early and went straight to the patient records office. As a nurse, she had access to scheduling information, and she wanted to see exactly how many changes Dr. Harrison had been making to her assignments. What she found made her stomach drop. Over the past 4 months, Dr. Harrison had reassigned nearly every patient case in the rehabilitation unit. Patients who should have been working with other therapists were being moved to Maya's schedule. Patients who were ready to be discharged were being kept longer than necessary. Most disturbing of all, patients who didn't need rehabilitation services, and all were being scheduled for sessions with Maya. Maya printed out the records and spread them across the break room table. The pattern was clear and frightening. Dr. Harrison had been systematically controlling every aspect of her work life, making sure she was always busy with cases he had personally selected. But that wasn't the worst part. As Maya dug deeper into the files, she discovered that Dr. Harrison had been writing false reports about her methods. He had documented sessions that never happened, recorded improvements that weren't real, and created a paper trail that made it look like Maya's healing abilities were the only thing keeping certain patients alive. "What are you doing here so early?" Maya jumped and turned around to find Dr. Harrison standing in the doorway. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled, and his eyes had dark circles under them. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I was just reviewing some patient files," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady while she gathered up the papers. "Those are confidential records," Dr. Harrison said, stepping into the room. "You shouldn't be looking at administrative documents." "I'm trying to understand why my schedule keeps changing," Maya replied. "And I think I found my answer." Dr. Harrison's face went pale. He closed the door behind him and moved closer to Maya. "You don't understand what you're looking at," he said. "Those changes were necessary? Medical decisions based on patient needs." "Patient needs?" Maya held up one of the files. "Mrs. Patterson was scheduled for 6 weeks of therapy with me. She didn't need therapy at all. Her knee surgery was completely successful. She was struggling with pain management," Dr. Harrison said quickly. "Traditional methods weren't working. According to her real medical records, she never complained about pain," Maya countered. "You made that up." Dr. Harrison ran his hands through his hair and began pacing around the small room. "Maya, you have to understand. What you can do is incredible. It's revolutionary. We can't waste it on routine cases when there are people who really need help." "That's not your decision to make," Maya said. "And it's not your decision to lie in medical records. I haven't lied about anything." Dr. Harrison's voice was getting louder. "I've documented everything exactly as it happened. Your sessions with these patients have been beneficial." Maya stood up, clutching the files to her chest. "Dr. Harrison, I think you need help. Professional help. This behavior isn't normal." "That's..." When Dr. Harrison broke down completely, he sank into a chair and put his head in his hands. "You're right," he whispered. "I know you're right, but I can't stop myself." Maya watched as this man who had always been so confident and in control began to fall apart in front of her eyes. "What do you mean you can't stop yourself?" "The sessions with you," Dr. Harrison said without looking up, "they help me in ways I can't explain. When you're working with patients, when I'm watching you heal people, I feel like everything is going to be okay, like the world makes sense again." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "Dr. Harrison, you're talking about my work with patients. That's not about you." "I know," he said, his voice cracking. "I know it's wrong. I know I'm being selfish. But when you're not around, when I don't see you helping people, I feel terrible, anxious, depressed, like nothing matters anymore." Maya began to understand what was happening. Dr. Harrison had become dependent on her healing sessions, but not in the way she had originally thought. He wasn't just attracted to her abilities, he was addicted to witnessing them. How long has this been going on? Maya asked gently. Since the beginning, Dr. Harrison admitted. Since that first day with Jake, watching you help him walk again, seeing the hope in his eyes, feeling like I was part of something miraculous. I've been chasing that feeling ever since. Maya sat down across from him. Dr. Harrison, what you're describing sounds like you're using my work as a way to avoid dealing with something else in your life. My wife left me 6 months ago, he said quietly. She said I was never present, never emotionally available. My kids barely talk to me anymore. I've been feeling empty, worthless, like I'm just going through the motions of living. But when you watch me work with patients, I feel hope again. Dr. Harrison finished. I feel like I'm witnessing something beautiful and meaningful, like maybe there's still magic in the world. Maya's heart went out to him, but she also felt frightened. This wasn't about her healing abilities anymore. This was about a man who had lost his way and was using her gift as a substitute for addressing his real problems. Dr. Harrison, I understand that you're going through a difficult time, Maya said carefully, but what you've been doing isn't helping either of us. You've been manipulating patient records, controlling my schedule, and using your position to get what you need rather than what's best for the patients. I know, he said, tears in his eyes. I know it's wrong, but I don't know how to stop. When I try to go a day without seeing you work, I feel sick, physically sick, like I'm going through withdrawal. Maya realized she was dealing with something much more serious than professional boundary issues. Dr. Harrison had developed what seemed like a genuine addiction to her healing sessions. And like any addiction, it was destroying his ability to function normally. You need to get help, Maya said firmly. Real help from a professional counselor or therapist. Someone who can help you work through what you're really struggling with. Will you keep working with me while I get help, Dr. Harrison asked desperately. I don't think I can handle this alone. Maya felt the weight of an impossible decision. If she said yes, she would be enabling his unhealthy dependence on her. But if she said no, she might be pushing him toward a complete breakdown. Dr. Harrison, I think the healthiest thing for both of us would be for me to request a transfer to a different department, Maya said. You need space to work on your problems without the temptation of relying on me. No. Dr. Harrison stood up suddenly. Maya, please, you're the only good thing in my life right now. If you leave, I don't know what I'll do. Maya looked at this man who had once been her respected supervisor and mentor, and saw someone who had lost control of his own life. She realized that her gift, wonderful as it was, had become a drug for him, and like any drug, it was keeping him from dealing with his real problems. She knew she had to make a choice that would be difficult for both of them, but necessary for their healing. Maya made the hardest decision of her professional life. She requested an immediate transfer to the hospital's pediatric unit, and she reported Dr. Harrison's behavior to the administration. It wasn't easy, but she knew it was the right thing to do for both of them. The hospital took the situation seriously. Dr. Harrison was placed on administrative leave while they investigated Maya's claims. When they reviewed the patient records, they found exactly what Maya had discovered: months of manipulated schedules, false documentation, and inappropriate use of resources. Maya thought she would feel relieved, but instead she felt guilty. She kept thinking about Dr. Harrison's desperate face when she told him she was leaving. She wondered if she could have handled the situation differently, if there was something she could have done to help him without enabling his unhealthy behavior. That's when her new supervisor, Dr. Kim, recommended that Maya speak with a counselor who specialized in helping healthcare workers deal with boundary issues. What you experienced isn't uncommon, Dr. Kim explained. People with healing gifts often attract individuals who become dependent on their abilities in unhealthy ways. Maya was surprised to learn that there were other healthcare workers who had faced similar situations. The counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, had been working with nurses, therapists, and doctors for over 20 years, helping them understand the complex dynamics that could develop around healing relationships. Your gift is real, Mrs. Rodriguez told Maya during their first session. But gifts come with responsibilities. One of those responsibilities is learning to set healthy boundaries, even when it's difficult. Maya learned that what had happened with Dr. Harrison was a form of emotional dependence that could develop in any helping relationship. When someone is in pain, whether physical or emotional, they can become attached to the person who provides relief. If that attachment isn't managed properly, it can become unhealthy for everyone involved. But I wanted to help him, Maya said. When someone is suffering, isn't it natural to want to ease their pain? Of course it is, Mrs. Rodriguez replied. That's what makes you good at what you do. But there's a difference between helping someone heal and becoming responsible for their emotional well-being. Dr. Harrison was using your sessions as a way to avoid dealing with his depression and personal problems. Maya started to understand that saying no to Dr. Harrison hadn't been cruel. It had been necessary. By refusing to enable his dependence, she had forced him to confront his real issues and seek appropriate help. Meanwhile, Dr. Harrison was going through his own difficult journey. After the initial shock of losing access to Maya's healing sessions, he experienced what he could only describe as withdrawal symptoms. He felt anxious, depressed, and completely lost. For the first time in months, he had to face his problems without the comfort of watching Maya work her magic. The hospital required him to attend counseling sessions as a condition of his eventual return to work. His therapist, Dr. Thompson, helped him understand that his fascination with Maya's abilities had been a way of avoiding his grief over his failed marriage and his feelings of inadequacy as a father and physician. You were using Maya's healing sessions like a drug, Dr. Thompson explained. Every time you watched her help someone, you got a temporary high that made you feel better about yourself and your life. But like any drug, you needed more and more to get the same effect. Dr. Harrison had to admit this was true. He had been scheduling more and more sessions with Maya, staying later and later at the hospital, and becoming increasingly desperate to witness her abilities. He had lost sight of what was best for patients and had focused entirely on feeding his own emotional needs. The healing process was slow and painful for both of them. Maya had to learn to trust her instincts about when someone's interest in her abilities was becoming unhealthy. She developed new protocols for her healing work, including always having other staff members present during sessions and setting clear time limits for her interactions with patients. She also learned to recognize the warning signs of unhealthy dependence. When patients or colleagues started making excuses to spend extra time with her, when they began claiming that only she could help them, or when they started making her feel guilty for setting boundaries, she knew she needed to step back and reassess the situation. In the pediatric unit, Maya found a new sense of purpose, working with children who were facing serious illnesses and injuries. She was able to use her gift in a pure way. Children didn't have the complicated emotional baggage that adults often brought to healing relationships. They simply accepted her help with gratitude and moved on with their lives. Dr. Harrison eventually returned to work, but in a different department. He had learned to find meaning and satisfaction in his medical work without needing to witness miraculous healing sessions. He started volunteer work with a support group for divorced fathers, finding that helping others through similar struggles gave him the sense of purpose he had been seeking. The two of them crossed paths occasionally in the hospital corridors. Their interactions were polite but brief. Dr. Harrison would sometimes stop to ask how Maya was doing, and she would respond kindly but professionally. There was no anger between them, but there was also no going back to the way things had been. Maya realized that her experience with Dr. Harrison had taught her something important about the nature of healing. True healing wasn't just about making someone feel better in the moment. It was about helping them develop the strength and skills they needed to face their problems on their own. She began incorporating this understanding into her work with patients. Instead of just providing relief from pain, she started teaching them coping strategies, connecting them with support groups, and helping them find their own sources of strength and hope. Maya's reputation as a healer continued to grow, but now she was known for something more than just her miraculous touch. She was known for her wisdom, her ability to help people find their own healing power, and her commitment to maintaining healthy boundaries in all her relationships. Years later, when Maya looked back on her experience with Dr. Harrison, she felt grateful for the lessons it had taught her. She had learned that having a gift wasn't just about using it, it was about using it responsibly, with awareness of its impact on others, and its potential for both good and harm. She had also learned that sometimes the greatest act of healing is knowing when to step back and let someone find their own way forward. True healing, she realized, wasn't about making people dependent on her abilities, it was about helping them discover their own capacity for growth, recovery, and hope. Maya continued her work in the pediatric unit, using her gift to help children and families through some of the most difficult times of their lives. But now she did so with a deeper understanding of the responsibilities that came with her abilities, and the wisdom to use them in ways that truly served the people she was meant to help.